All right.
Good morning.
Good afternoon.
And good
Welcome
night.
to Switching to Reels.
Welcome to Switching Reels, Connor.
Yep. You are our host, Trenton.
And you are our host, Connor.
Yes. And what did we watch this week?
We watched Forrest Gump. I had never seen it.
Yeah.
Surprisingly. I have one friend who I kind of like joke around hasn't seen very many movies. I compared my knowledge of movies compared to him. Okay, never mind. Sorry. Reversing this. Your knowledge of movies to me is my knowledge of movies to him.
Has this man seen a movie?
Yeah, he's seen Lord of the Rings and Forrest Gump. I had not seen Forrest Gump yet.
So he's seen 4 movies.
At least. I have gotten positive confirmation of 4 movies. And he saw this movie. So anyway, that is all to say. This was my one thing that I needed to go and watch.
Are there people out there? I thought you were like one
The
of
lowest?
the only ones.
Yeah, no, not even close, man. Not even close.
My word.
They have other interests. They spend their times doing other things.
What other things?
CrossFit.
Okay, you know what? I'm not going to go into stereotypes about CrossFit people. So,
So anyway, this was a fantastic movie.
Yeah.
I think so. Actually,
Okay.
I do think it was actually pretty good. So
Yeah.
I only had a couple one moment of uncontrollable rage, so that was good. I like it when I only have one moment of uncontrollable rage, which we'll talk about more after the spoiler
Okay.
tags.
Okay.
So recommendations, I'll start on those. I would recommend this to basically anyone. There are some boobies.
You're not
some
wrong.
other nudity and death. Lots of gunshots. He follows gunshots around a lot.
Yeah.
Like a lot.
Yeah. I'm going to give away a little bit of my rating here.
Yeah.
Because I'm fine with your recommendation. I might change it a little bit personally, but does it deserve its place on the list? I would
nice.
say absolutely not.
Nice. Where would you put it on this list?
If it were to be on this list, it would be toward the bottom for me.
Okay. I'm really looking forward to going and inspecting that.
I mean,
I don't think it deserves that. Like, it is at a similar caliber.
I don't think
a lot
it
of
is.
these stories.
I don't think
it
it's.
is.
I don't think it's
I'm
a similar
excited.
caliber.
I'm excited.
Yeah.
So your recommendations, though, if you were to like gunpoint, you had to recommend this to someone.
I had to recommend it to someone who wanted to know what the 60s through the 80s looked like in America through the eyes of an unreliable narrator.
Exceptionally.
That's about it. That's
Nice.
about all I can.
Yeah, and
suggest.
also I like, if you like the hype, or if you want to know about what the hype is around Forrest Gump, watch it once. It's really not a waste of time in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. I do view it as a movie that is rightfully seen as a classic,
Mm-hmm.
but I just don't think that it makes the cut for top 250 movies of all time. Like, it's not.
Interesting.
I know that probably from our conversations outside of the podcast and my initial reaction inside the podcast here, it may sound like I think that this is just a bad
Just a
movie.
garbage movie.
I don't think that.
Throw it into a trash can,
I
set it
think-
on fire.
Well, I mean, I think it's a good movie. It's just, I don't think it's that good.
Okay.
You know, and I'll get into past the spoiler mark. I'll get into some of my reasons for thinking that it's a weak movie overall. But again, I think just putting it up front, like, you're not wasting your time by seeing this. And I do think that there are some things about this movie that are really strong. I just think that as a cohesive piece, I don't love it.
Good
So,
to know. Good
yeah.
to know. So does it deserve its place on the list? I think this is 12. Either 11 or 12
I think it's 11.
13, something like that. When in those range.
I think we're at 11 here.
Return of the King was one of those. Okay, yeah, I do think that like it holds its own with these movies. So I'd put it. I don't know that I'd move it very much myself. So I'm
Okay.
looking forward to
Yeah.
the discussion.
Okay.
Ratings then. So yes, enjoyment, technical. Where would you put this?
For an enjoyment, I would put it at like a light 4 to a strong 5.
I knew you were gonna say 4. I was like,
Light-
oh, that's a feeling.
Or a strong 4 to a light 5. Sorry. Yeah, that's my like rating. Technical, it's like an 8 probably from me. I do think it is a technically well done film.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. Yeah, I'd probably put this one at a solid 7 or 8 for enjoyment. Like,
Okay.
I really didn't find spots that I didn't enjoy. And technical, I would also technical. It was mundane in the how well it was. Like, it was just well done. Like, but it didn't do anything new and exciting. So I'd probably put that at like also an 8, 8.5.
We'll get into that, but it did do some things that were very new and exciting for when it came out.
Nice.
So
When did it come out?
I don't know. I know it's
I was gonna say
legacy more than
2000s.
no.
It isn't. It looks 2000s.
It isn't. It was, I want to say, early 90s.
Nice.
It may have been a little later than that, but I know it was before 2000s with relative certainty.
I'm excited.
Anyway.
We'll check that out.
So this is where we do our spoiler
Spoiler
warning.
tag. This is where we're going to be doing all of the in-depth talking.
Yes. So starting with summary of the movie, I feel like I've already given a
summary.
pretty good
Concise.
summary by my own account. Other than I would add in that there is a through line of a relationship story between Forrest and Jenny. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Awesome. I'll
Do you want to take a crack at
Yeah.
the
No.
summary?
This is. So I don't think it's necessarily complex. It is not a complex story. Like the Forrest Gump is the story of an intellectually challenged man as he goes about his life during the period of the Vietnam War, somewhere between the 60s and 80s. With, again, like you were saying, that undertow of a nearly unrequited love. And I don't even know if it's not unrequited till the end, but we can discuss that. So yeah.
I mean, I would argue before we get too far into this, I would argue that it's requited. It's just that Jenny is so damaged as a person, and she knows it.
Yeah.
That she sees herself as essentially unworthy of Forrest's
Purity, essentially.
For no other reason than maybe that he doesn't understand, what is necessarily what's being done to him.
Yeah.
How he's being treated at all times.
Yeah.
Like we see even one of the earliest scenes where, the football games where like everybody on the sidelines thinks he's a complete idiot.
Yeah.
But they also recognize that he's got talent in other areas, and so they praise him for that.
Exactly.
So as far as technical execution, I think there's one thing that this film did incredibly well, that to like a modern audience, we wouldn't necessarily see it unless we knew it going in. But the fact that they composited Forrest into historical footage.
Yeah. And relatively well.
Yes. With some actually like spectacular results.
Really good success.
And one piece of attention to detail that I really appreciated in this watch through was some of the reactions of people around him that you could see they were playing up for the purpose of the film.
Yes.
And it makes me just want to know what was happening in the actual footage.
Me too. Very much so. No, absolutely. It'd be fun to go and see if we can find at least some of that is
absolutely
guaranteed just on the internet.
Yeah.
It'd be really, really fun to go and see.
Yeah.
Completely agree. So did summaries, initial reactions, rating. So Why don't you like this movie?
Well, I've got a couple of issues, and if I can jump ahead a little bit to theme, that's
Do it.
actually one of the things that I think bothers me most about this film is, you know, we've got the feather at the beginning and the end,
Mm-hmm.
which is supposed to tie into the overall theme of the film, which is, you know, are we destined to do things, or are we just kind of floating around on the wind? And honestly, I don't think it's a very well executed theme. I think that it's kind of weak and it's overlaid to the story, but like, what difference did it make to Forrest or any of the characters around him, whether he was destined to do these things or whether he just happened to do them? Like that. That's one thing that really bothers me about it. It bothers me that my favorite part of the whole film is the frame story, and then they just drop it for the end of the film.
The frame story?
The frame story where he's telling people at the bus stop about all the things that have happened in his life.
Up to a certain point. Yeah, exactly.
And then it just treats it like it's still the same
kind of story. Yeah, who's he telling the story to after that point?
Right, yeah. He's not telling the story to anyone.
Yeah.
And it, like, the movie does not shift in such a way, or like
we still have the overlay of his voice at random points, and
yeah, and I mean, I think that it's a weakness of the film. I think the theme is a weakness. I think that is a weakness. I think that overall the only reason that the film works at all is because of that frame story.
Mm-hmm.
Because the fact that he's going through all of these like really big events in American history through this time period, it feels, in any other story, his relationship with Jenny would be completely out of place. Right? The only reason that she's in the story with him, as he tells these people about it, is because she's important to him.
Yeah.
And I don't know, the moment you lose that frame story, you lose me.
Interesting. Because, like...
Because why do I care who Jenny is anymore?
Because it's still important to Forrest. You're still following Forrest. It isn't a nice jump.
Yeah.
There isn't something that demarks, hey, now we are changing how we're telling the story, because you don't. But the content and the purpose and the heart behind what's happening doesn't change.
It's true.
Also,
it doesn't make me like it anymore, though.
That's true. No, it doesn't make you like it anymore. But I don't feel like it should make you like it any less, is my opinion. I feel you're wrong.
Okay.
But
fair enough.
The feeling of that motif, I almost feel like part of it is making you ask the question, like, what did it matter? The entire time. Like, this
isn't a Coen Brothers film. Like, they're not getting at some nihilistic point. Like, if I were watching a film and being like, oh, they're trying to push something about nihilism, like, go for it.
Love
show me a pointless film.
Yes.
But this one feels like it's so pointedly about something, and it just never
I don't feel like it is pointed
is.
about something. I feel like this is the musings of a man that is slightly intellectually challenged who had a lot of really good things happen to him. I think that's what the story is. Like, yeah. And you could go and look for the deeper theme, because you do have the feather on both sides, and you do have, they're talking about him, like, all of his, like, physical actions do kind of feel like, oh, it's whatever thing comes up, he does it. Yeah. Or, like, whenever he has a promise he made, he follows through, and that's what he does. Like, that's the kind of person he is. And so, but I don't think they're trying to say anything about it. I just think they're saying, look, Forrest is the kind of person that goes through this, and by the, like, just his presence and purity and simplistic way of looking at life provides hope to a very complex world.
I suppose, but, like, I don't know. I can't get past the feeling that it feels unstructured Like
Only in the end, though. The last 20 minutes.
No. I feel like the whole story is unstructured.
Really?
And again, I feel like it works because of the frame story. Because
You're reminiscing.
Forrest's mind is kind of unstructured, and that's fine. We're in the mind of the character. But I can't do unstructured story when we're not in that for a good reason. Right? Like, why do I care about him running back and forth across the country if not for the fact that it's this one dude who thinks that was important?
Yeah.
And honestly, that's probably the hardest part of the movie for me, is because I go, this isn't important to Forrest. He just ran because he felt like running.
That's a good point. Yes.
There's no reason for us to be invested in something that the character himself is not invested in.
Except for, I feel like there is, because it's still an analysis of a person. Forrest is slower than everyone else. Like every other person.
Mentally, but not physically.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure.
He's physically faster than everyone.
Physically faster. With I would anyway, yes, like
we
just
see
with his
no
physical
one,
body.
We see no one in this film
him, except for fighter jets and trucks and other things, where like he is slower than an average person, but does the same thing that an average person does. He just thinks about it more and for longer, and sometimes it doesn't even come to him. The fact that he had to spend 3 years processing the trauma of Vietnam and Jenny and everything else that's happened in his life makes sense, because he's slow. And he knows how to do one thing, and that is run places.
That's fair, but I don't feel like he was actually processing anything except Jenny in that.
No, because he mentioned multiple... He said he thought a lot about a lot of things. And yes, mostly Jenny, but a lot of things. Like, he went on a run because he wanted to go on a run, but that was what his brain said. What his brain needed was the time to process.
Okay. I think that's fair, but I don't think he would have the ability to analyze that to understand that.
He doesn't have the desire to. He has the ability to. He doesn't care about analyzing it. He is the leaf, like as a manifestation.
Yeah,
like
he's the feather.
Exactly. Yeah. He is the leaf feather on the wind.
Yeah. And I understand that.
Yeah.
Like it's not. That wasn't so lost on me.
Oh, was it? Okay, good. Awesome.
But again, I don't feel like it was. I don't feel like it was a very strong theme.
And strong as in well executed, because it was everywhere. Like it was strong as in it was interwoven into everything.
Kinda. The feather only shows up at the beginning and the end.
Oh, for sure. But the theme of the like blowing on the wind is everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just feel like there are other movies that we've already seen on this list that don't have as strong of a theme as this theme is, that you like enjoy a lot more for the fact of their theme.
If they're okay, so I think part of my issue with the theming on this is that I don't think that the theme itself adds anything to the conversation. Like it posits the question, do we have a destiny, or are we just moving through life randomly? And there is absolutely no attempt to answer it.
No, that's true. That's actually a really good point.
There's also no attempt. There's also no attempt to explore it, right? We just look at one guy that asks this question and kind of exemplifies the
leaf portion, the feather portion.
The feather.
He says leaf at the end, which is why I'm saying leaf.
But either way, that's the only connection to it. Like we don't have people like going through it saying that, you know, he did this because he was so brilliant, with the exception of the drill sergeant. And that is played entirely for comedy.
It is. That was such a good scene. An IQ of 160. It's the best answer I've ever had.
You'll be a general. All right. But yeah, like I think it's a poorly explored theme. And it feels kind of overlaid to me.
Yeah, and so it doesn't go and resolve itself at all.
And I'm not saying that every movie has to explore its themes to its like utmost degree, but like I feel like this one is the fact that it starts and ends the film with that imagery.
Mm-hmm. It feels like we should have had something in the middle.
And like the emotional climax is supposed to be when he's at the bedside with Jenny, and has this conversation about it, right? And I just don't care. If you are going to make this the emotional pinnacle of your film, it needs to have more substance to it.
I see what you're saying. Okay, that makes sense. I didn't feel like it was going to. I didn't feel like the movie was building up to anything.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't feel that there needed to be a payoff in this one because of the type of person that Forrest was. Like,
okay.
It felt more like a slice of life, and it was his entire life, than it did a cohesive story. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. I'm watching a slice of life movie. Awesome.
Okay. I can see how that view of it would maybe make it better, but like, I don't know. My favorite slice of life movies are also, I think, far more about conversation and the conversations that we have.
Yeah. And
that was not what this one is at all.
That's not at all what this one is. At all.
So, I don't know.
This is really good to know.
Yeah.
This is, I am glad to finally have one that we can disagree on.
Yeah. I will say for some of the things that I do really appreciate about this film, because I don't hate it.
It's not a trash film.
Yeah.
Says Connor.
Yeah. I don't even dislike the film. Like,
you just don't like it as much.
I brought the film here today.
Exactly.
Because I own it.
You do own it. Exactly.
Which means I paid money for it.
Yes. Hard-earned time.
But one thing that I do really, really love about this film is there are certain moments throughout that are just very, very impactful emotionally. And especially in the relationship between Jenny and Forrest. Mm-hmm. Like, you feel for him every time that Jenny does something that, you know, it hurts him. Mm-hmm. And it does those scenes really, really well.
Yes, completely agree.
And I think that there are some scenes that are also really funny for certain things. I mean, Lieutenant Dan.
Lieutenant Dan, actually, I was just about to mention.
Yeah. Like, especially when we first meet him, he's hilarious.
Yes.
And the drill sergeant is probably my favorite character in the entire movie.
So I also liked Bubba. He was really good and cute, and it was sad when he died a little bit. You knew it was going to happen, but still sad.
Yeah. Well, I knew it was going to happen because I've seen it several times.
It's a bad joke.
Yeah. What was? I missed it.
No, that's it. And I think
I'm so confused. Okay, let's move on.
I loved Lieutenant Dan. He was great. And I feel like that was probably my favorite like arc thing to follow was just the like funny random windfalls that happened while Dan was around, and the only reason that Forrest is even having money is because Dan was a good person. Because otherwise anyone else would have just taken whatever share of the company and left.
Yeah. So like I don't know. Again, I don't hate this movie. I think that there are great things about it. I think everybody should watch it at least once. I
didn't like Jenny as a character. As a character, she was done really well to make you not like her. The only moment of like very intense rage that I had was when we learned why she called Forrest there, and I was like, "Oh, you have a son," and I'm like doing the math in my head. at least 3.5, 4 years that you've that he's had his son and didn't know.
In defense of that, he was running the entire time, and she had no way to contact him.
That is a good point. He was running the entire time until the very end there. No, you're totally right.
So, like, he gets back and finds the letter.
Yeah,
if I remember correctly.
Pretty close to that. I think there's some time in between, but no, that's a good point.
So
has sex once as a kid.
Yep.
This man is the epitome of
virility. Let's move on.
Least probable outcome occurring. Maybe not least probable, obviously. But the number of least probable outcomes that have happened to this man makes him an oddity.
Yeah. Which again is kind of the point.
Exactly.
There is just an aside that I have to
let's do it.
That I have to address, just for my own sake, not for anyone else's. But there is a theory out there that Robert Zemeckis is a racist.
Who's Robert Zemeckis?
He is the director of this.
Is a racist?
Yes.
Okay.
He takes a character that is named after a Ku Klux Klan member, and at least 2 of the achievements in this film are attributed to him that were actually done by black people. One of which being, just kind of generally speaking, the leg shake thing that Elvis does.
Yep.
That was a dance, and it was popular not from a kid that had braces on his legs. The second one is the Watergate Hotel scandal. Was actually it was a black man that called it in that saw that.
Oh, that's really funny.
He also directed Back to the Future, which I don't know if you've seen that.
I haven't seen Back to the Future. Nope. Not
okay. Well, there is a scene where the white guy that goes back in time in the car invents rock and roll. And so, I don't think anybody seriously is like, oh yeah, he's systematically taking apart, black culture in order to, give it to white people. But like, there are certain things like in this film that you just look at and you go,
and maybe even like the interaction.
Maybe this was something you should have thought about before you. Yeah.
Like even the section in the Black Panther area, like it kind of demeans that movement with the focus on Jenny and Forrest.
Yeah.
So that's a good point. I could see it. Yes. There's not a necessarily far out.
Yeah, I don't think that Robert Zemeckis is actively a racist. I think he maybe just made some choices that
could have been.
He should have thought out a little bit more.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's still funny to think about.
I completely agree. So standout scenes, I think Forrest did a good job.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Tom Hanks. Yeah. Tom Hanks. Yeah. Yeah. He nailed the role. Absolutely.
Was Lieutenant Dan George of the Jungle?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think I've ever seen George of the Jungle.
Oh, then that's one we need to watch off the list.
Okay, we'll find a time for it.
Yeah.
But yeah. Honestly, I don't think anyone in this film did a bad job of acting.
No.
Even some of the minor side characters
did a really good job.
Did a great job. The guy that when he said the F word, everyone cheered, even comes to mind as like he has less than a minute of screen time and
nothing.
Still just like I think he did a great job through that.
Know what he was talking about with Vietnam? Your feet falling off?
I was thinking about that this time, and I think if he would have said anything about Vietnam in that scene, it just wouldn't have worked.
Yes.
Like the only thing that they could have done was what they did, where they just cut out his audio for it. I think that's the only way that that speech doesn't go horribly wrong
Yeah,
in some way.
I agree, and I think it was really well done.
So
That was a good one.
yeah. But yeah, like I watch this and I can't think of any scenes outside of the relationship scene that I'm just like, oh yeah, that really hit home for me.
Yes.
You know? Or even that I am just wildly impressed with.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And
yeah,
so,
like because I would agree with that as well. Like there isn't anything necessarily in my mind except for I liked a lot of the scenery scene, like shots whenever he was running across the country.
Yeah,
that was pretty.
Yeah, it's pretty.
That's it.
Yeah.
Like, I would agree with that. Like I said, I don't feel like
that
it was
was
outstanding. Nothing was outstanding.
The location manager did a really good
Great
job. So
absolutely, yeah, good job, location manager. The funny napalm missiles coming out of the sky. That was for some reason that was like,
those,
you lost me.
Those don't look right.
Exactly. I think that was this wasn't a movie for special effects, and so the special effects were a little bit lacking.
Yeah. Well, and also when it came out, special effects were not at the level that they are now.
That's a good point.
So
that's a good point.
So yeah.
Nice. Yeah, and I can't think of anything else. There's just like a standout scene. The performances were good. The scenes were good. Like I said, I don't know that it's like I can see why it's as high on the list as it is.
Mm-hmm.
I could see it almost being a comfort movie for some people because it isn't extraordinary.
I could absolutely see it as a comfort movie for people. Yeah.
But from a movie like art standpoint, I would agree that maybe it's not the most well-constructed piece of art.
Yeah. And again, I'm not saying that it's bad. I'm just saying that I don't.
I'm just saying, get it off my list. Toy Story is much better.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which it is. Good. I absolutely will agree. Toy Story was better.
So yeah.
Nice.
I don't feel like I have a whole lot more to say about this. Do you?
I don't think that I do either.
All right. Well, next week's film is Fight Club.
Oh, nice. I haven't seen that either.
What's Fight Club? We'll talk about it next week.
Ah, dang.
So how do we end this?
And that's all I have to say about that.